great Friday evening, everybody, and welcome to the Hearts of Men podcast, hosted by the Empowering Perspective community. I'm your host, Dwayne Dwyer, and I am accompanied with my outstanding host, R- Roland. Wait, hold on, that's Chris. I'm sorry. Chris. So we're going to go with Chris across the table with Chris McClellan, also known in my perspective, Chris on the other side of the table. And then we got Roland down the street. So, gentlemen, how are you this beautiful Friday evening?
I'm well. I'm
I'm
well.
doing all right.
I
Definitely.
love it. I love it. But man, listen, I'm excited. Listen, man, I just want to thank you guys for the awesome job that you guys do every week. Man, I get some amazing feedback based upon the comments that you guys give, and I just feel like I'm the point guard on the basketball team, man. You guys do all make all the layups. So, man, I just appreciate what you guys do, and I just want to thank you each one individually in public. I want everybody to know I appreciate you guys, and also we appreciate the viewers, man. Listen, did you guys see how live the chat was last week?
Yes.
The
Man,
past couple of weeks, definitely.
last couple of weeks. But
Mhm.
I'm going back to last week, man, because you started something with that five heartbeats thing, and
Yep.
man, that just kind of just took over and just ran. So shout out to everybody in the chat room, Cassandra,
Yeah.
Mackenzie, Michelle, Ray. We appreciate you guys being with us this evening, and for everybody else who is also joining us, man, we greatly appreciate you guys. Tell me we in here. We appreciate we appreciate you guys, man. You guys are awesome. And for those people who are brand new to the show, again, welcome to the Hearts of Men podcast. Listen, do me a favor, go to YouTube, type in Empowering Perspective, and subscribe. After you subscribe, go ahead and hit the notification button. That way, you are notified every time we hit the go live button. We have some regular scheduled programs, but there may be some impromptu ones as well. So, that way you guys know what it is. So, go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, go ahead and hit the notification button, and share because tonight we're talking about something that I think is going to be a phenomenal discussion. Gentlemen, tonight we talking about we got feelings too. The
Mm.
emotions of men. Come on, man. I was excited for this here all week. I don't know about you guys.
Man, I ain't had no emotion.
Mm.
Now let me stop.
Not right.
See what I'm saying? This is why I tell you these guys are awesome, man. I love it. So you know me. I like to baseline understanding because I think, and don't let me speak for you guys. You guys kind of chime in and help me out with this. But from my perspective, I think throughout history, and I'm just going back as far as I could remember, as far as men and their emotions, it just seemed kind of like it's brushed aside or placed on the back burner, or our emotions aren't as important as others. And so that's one of the reasons why I believe that this is going to be a phenomenal conversation. But did you guys see it the same way, or did you view it differently, or your thoughts?
I think when I was growing up, I always thought, and I was made to think that emotions were a feminine trait.
Hmm.
So if you were emotional, if you showed emotions, it's like, man, you two in touch with your feminine side.
Hmm.
When I was growing up. So it was like, man, you got to be tough. You got to be rough and rugged. And then, like I tell you, I had them girls right out the back. So it was like, I'd be like, dang, you can't be a hard dude picking up a baby, guy, goo goo. It's like, nah, hey, goo goo guy, you playing with the baby.
Right, right.
You're not, you know. So I
Yeah.
think that's one of them things where bad teaching just continues the cycle of bad behavior in men.
Hmm. I like it, Chris. What are your thoughts on that one, brother?
As far as our emotions mattering, I
Well,
didn't.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I say I didn't know they did until now.
Mm,
Now all of a sudden everybody cares about what we think. Everybody cares about how we feel. Everybody wants us to be in touch with our feminine side, quote unquote, unquote.
Hmm.
And I'm starting to treat it. I'm starting to treat it like I treat these buzzwords out here, to be honest,
mm,
because men's mental health is starting to become this in thing now when we should have been addressing this when we were young. Like Roland said, when we were coming up, we were taught to have the toxic emotions that everybody wants us not to convey now.
mm,
They wanted us to suppress the 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 emotional sad, I have feelings, this is bothering me kind of emotions. And they wanted us to push towards the I'm gonna mess everybody up, I'm bad, I'm hard, I'm tough, I got all the women type emotions.
Mm.
Now it seems like the roles have been flipped. Now they want us to be more sensitive and more caring and all of this other stuff, but none of us were taught how.
Right.
That's a good point.
And to keep it real, when we were like that, we were disregarded and looked at as soft, like Roland said. So it's like, make up your mind. Which one is it?
That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Excuse me. I'm glad you brought that up because I want to go ahead and baseline understanding, right? Just like I did before. What I want to do is make sure that we have a rolling definition of emotions. That way, that as we're talking about this, it is conveyed clear, and we're all seeing it from the same perspective. So, if we can all agree that, and and I think it's going to be kind of difficult not to, if we can all agree that emotions are a complex experience of consciousness, bodily sensation, and behavior that reflects the personal significance of a thing, an event, or a state of affairs, if we can agree that that is a unified, accepted definition of emotions, then I think where we're getting ready to go with this discussion is going to be phenomenal. And Chris, you had us you kind of started us off in the right place because this is where I want to go with it. I want to talk about what those emotions look like in early childhood, teenage years, and the our young adulthood. So if you guys just kind of get us started from your perspective, we can actually just kind of dive into this.
I'll yield to Mr. Rowland.
Okay. Early childhood for me, I remember going to church with my grandmother. And my grandmother, you know how them old women, when they want you to shut your mouth, you shut your mouth and they give you that look. And if you ain't, still, they leaned up on you
Yeah.
and grab your little meat right there and pinch you real hard and then telling you with their lips closed, you better not say no, you better not cry. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in pain, but I can't cry. I'm in pain, but I can't show it. I have these emotions, but you're telling me to suppress them for your decorum within the arena that we're in right now. So I
Mm,
think early childhood, whether it was that or even when boys fall or used to when we used to fall and we skin our knee, well, you better get up, rub some dirt on it. I do
You
it myself.
right.
Exactly, I do it myself, and I do it. Uh, I make sure that it's not hurt versus just some pain.
yeah.
I make sure it's not. Is he bleed? You, uh, because I think that a man needs to know he has to get up from pain.
Yeah.
So it's like you got a thin line that you gotta walk when it comes to emotions and making a person stagnant when it comes to emotions. And then teenage years, I think when as teenager, I don't think I was too emotional. I think the area I grew up in, you were trying to be a man.
Yeah.
And you're learning how to be a man from people that don't really know how to be a man. They know how to be a male and they know that they're domineering. So lead emotions out of it. But when you don't get your way, you buck up, you fight, you instead of using your emotions to think, to settle the situations, you use that manly bravado to overextend to where okay now the testosterone is coming into play, so I think that's where I was early in teenage years, young adult.
I love it. I love it. Chris, you already started, brother. Go ahead and continue. What you got?
So I was in a similar place.
Mm,
I was in a similar place. I wasn't allowed to hurt. Like when Roland said, it's okay to get up from hurt. It's okay to get up from pain, but I was never taught to acknowledge it. Like, man, this hurts. I was never taught that. I was taught, oh well, yeah, you skinned your knee, get up. I'll put I'll, I'll put some new skin on it and put a band-aid on it and then go back outside and play. You understand what I'm saying? That was early childhood. Teenage years, I just shut down because I didn't know how to express myself.
Mm.
I really didn't. I didn't know how to express myself as far as having emotions, whether they were good or bad. And
Major Pain. You remember the movie Major Pain?
I've
Remember
never
when?
seen it.
I do.
Really?
I've never seen it.
Well, you got to watch it. When Tiger was hurt,
Hmm.
Major Pain, he didn't know how to deal with children. He used to dealing with soldiers. He said, "You want me to make you forget about that pain?" And he grabbed his finger. He was gonna break his
That's
finger
right.
so he'll forget about the other pain.
That's right.
And that's what, like, sometimes, like, even when I was older and I would deal with young boys, like if their elbow was hurting, I'll say, "Boy, you want me to make you forget about your elbow?" I'll smack their hand.
Yeah.
You thinking about your hand now? You ain't even thinking about it. Meaning to me, like it's all a thing in your mind.
But either way, it still hurt.
Exactly.
And don't nobody acknowledge the fact that it still hurt.
Exactly. I just shift one pain for the other. Now I got two
That's
pains.
it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Now my hand and my elbow hurt. How do I handle this now?
Mhm.
Yeah, listen, you guys are spot on, and the same experiences you guys are talking about, I had as well. Before I get into that, man, shout out to everybody in the chat room. You guys are doing a phenomenal job already, and I think this is, talking about that grandma training the wrong teaching. I think that's really where we need to start to, right? She said something earlier. I really want to kind of put up here as we talk about it. Bad teaching has a long term effect, and I
Yep.
think that's really where we're going to go in the midst of this conversation. Um, but I do want to kind of go back to the bad teaching versus, well, I only can teach what I know. And I
Mhm.
think that's really what it was more so about. Like they didn't necessarily know how to teach children how to have emotions because they were teaching children from the position of survival, right? Like you just heard, for me, when I would fall, skin my knee, get up, stop that crying, or you hear stuff like little boys don't cry, little boys got to be tough. And so over the years, what you'll find is that I bought into that because that's what I thought was supposed to be. I believe men were tough. My grandfather I thought was amazing, and he was when I say the Rock of Gibraltar, bro, I mean he would just sit there, and you got all kind of chaos going around him. And at a certain point in time, he would just hit his hand on the table and be like, "Quiet." Everybody got quiet. And I'm like, man, that is it. So I seen all this as a little boy. And so men being emotional, I didn't really see that. I never really seen a man express himself when I was young. Fast forward into my teenage years. Well, guess what I didn't do a lot of as a teenager? Express myself. So, everybody had the little high school love thing going on, right? Y'all want to talk about it, I bring it to the table. I don't care, right? Everybody had the little high school love thing going on. Yeah, there was this thing that I was feeling, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't really know how to process it. And so did I really handle it correctly? I don't think so. Did I express it properly? I don't think so. And then on the other hand, I can also say whoever my girlfriend was during high school, they probably didn't either. So it was a lot of misunderstanding of what emotions look like, which transferred over again into young adult. So as a young adult, now I'm in the army, right? Because that's what we did at a fairly young age. Well, I'm in the army and I'm all about be all you can be. We done went through basic training, we harder than woodpecker lips. And next thing you know, I got this wife and these kids, and I'm coming home from work. Hey, clean your room, blah, 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 make good grades. And again, not necessarily emotional, and don't even mention the word intimacy because that's a deeper understanding of what emotions are about. But as a young man, I thought intimacy was like a physical attraction. So when you, like, we have up here, when you don't necessarily have that fairly decent understanding of emotions, you mishandle them. And that's exactly what I did.
And you brought up one thing that definitely, I hurt my hand. Slap on the you brought up something because, like I always say, I was raised by my great grandmother. So you talking somebody that wasn't too far removed from her mother and her grandparents and them being slaves. So when it came to instructing somebody what to do, it was like, I got to make sure you do it. So if you don't, I'm gonna whoop your blank.
Mm,
And that's where, like, whoopings and stuff come from. You got to get the strap. It made us go get our own switches. So it's like, okay, you're disciplining me, but it's not necessarily, it doesn't fit the crime.
mm. That's good.
You getting this belt, you getting the, and all I'm gonna do is try to grab it, wrap it around my arm, and you're gonna swing me around till you get tired. But it's like, and so when I grew up, like I tell people, my first daughter, she got all the whoopings because I didn't know how to discipline the child. I didn't know how to raise a kid. I'm a kid myself, and I got this kid. How they make me do what they wanted me to do? They whoop me.
Hmm.
They, things like that. And I think that's part of protection. I got to make sure you don't get out of line at home. So when you go outside this house, you don't get out of line. Because if I don't whoop them, they gonna whoop them.
Right. That's good. That's good. And but you're spot on with that as well. Um, I like what you said about the whoopings. I'm not gonna go over the different types of whoopings I used to get, but you're right. Yeah, I remember running around in circles trying to get away from it, and just all kind of stuff like that. But it got us to the point. Don't get me wrong; it built up some resiliency, but it
Mhm.
also built up some habits as well. Because
Right.
like you, I did the same thing as a young father. But when my baby girl came along, I don't recall whipping her one time. It was to the point to where if I got upset in her behavior, she automatically knew how to get to me. She would start crying, and that was it. I would back off, ease off. Right? She knew how to pull a daddy string, and that was it. That's all it took. But she knew based upon what I was displaying at that particular point in time. Well, she knew it wasn't acceptable, that behavior. So, man, I love where we're going with this because I think this kind of gets after what we're talking about. So, that being said, let's kind of dive into some of these common myths that exist about men and emotions. What you guys got?
Number one, we have them. Let's just start there. We have them.
So it's a
Men,
myth that we don't.
it's a myth that we
Right.
don't.
Yeah.
It's a myth that we are all robots that don't feel anything. That is a lie that mainstream media has shoved down everybody's throats. Men have emotions. Why do you think you see so many men out here wilding out?
Mm,
Because they have emotions. They just don't know how to take care of them and don't know how to handle them correctly because nobody taught them right. And to be honest, I don't really think you can put the blame on anybody because coming down, like you said, man, they only taught what they know. They only knew what they knew. They didn't know the nuances. They didn't know that there was a certain type of awareness that you're supposed to have when you're dealing with somebody else. They didn't know that that other person isn't going to always feel the way that you feel. They didn't know
yeah,
that. And they didn't know that we actually feel like we feel. And it's not soft to feel. It's misguided when you act on your feelings without putting any thought behind it. But we have feelings. So I'm gonna just start it there.
great starting point. I love it.
Mm.
Come on, roll and top
Uh,
it.
Story mine. No, common myth about that emotions are a feminine uh, trait. I think it's feminine in nature, but I think that's the makeup of human. You aren't all masculine. It ain't like you all rah rah. You need both.
Hmm,
It's not an estrogen thing. It's a and that's why I was speaking with you earlier because I watch Paternity Court. When I see these young men these days, when they come into conflict, they don't know how to deal with it emotionally. Because once conflict come, they so nobody's listening. The conversation is up here, and if it's a parent-child situation, now the parent, like I would never discipline my kids when I was mad. If I was mad, I'd tell them go. Because if I do it now, I'm gonna beat you senseless. So I would make sure boom gone because I'm in my emotions. So
right.
I had to come to a place where I could recognize if I deal with something right now, I'm gonna hurt somebody, and it's gonna hurt me in the long run. So I had to come to a place where I would dial everything back, take a minute. I had to take a minute and breathe, and then handle the situation. And I think the myth is that only a female should deal with emotions.
You know what? You guys are awesome. I'm gonna start with Chris's statement because I like the fact that he started there. But before I do so, man, again, shout out to everybody who's viewing. We appreciate you guys. Every week, man, you guys show up and you actually are present. Like you make your presence felt. So thank you. I see the comments. Lisa, I really want to get to that question that you asked. I'm gonna bring it up later. But phenomenal question, Gaddy. You're spot on with that statement, brother, because you're bringing the concept of suicide to the table. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Chris, you started off and you said that we have emotions. And I like the fact that you started with that because I think in some aspects, depending upon the situation, there used to be a understanding that there's only a few things that we need, right? As long as this is okay and as long as this is okay, then they're fine. Leave them alone. Don't even worry about them. And I think from the perspective of not understanding that men have emotions, number one, and not necessarily understand what it looks like when we express those emotions. I think now what you're seeing, because you mentioned this earlier, I think now what you're seeing is the fact that not only do men we recognize that we do have emotions, but our emotions are just as important as yours. So when you look at it, one of the things I want to tap on to what you said, not only do we have emotions, but we have emotions. Our emotions are just as important as anybody else's emotions, and I will also say this, there is nothing written that says that I have to be at the level of emotional awareness that anybody else. It is a progressive level of awareness that I am in this thing we call emotions. It's my responsibility. It's not anybody else's. But to understand that I have emotions, when I bring them to the table, be careful because when you tell me they don't matter, you teach me to be quiet.
Mhm.
When you teach me to be quiet, trust me when I tell you, it's going to be hard to start this 57 Buick back up again. So we got to understand, don't, just like you don't want your emotions shut down, women, don't shut down the man's emotions. Listen to what he is actually saying because he's trying to express himself. And listen, it's not going to sound like yours. It's probably not going to sound like yours. That's okay. It's just different. Listen for understanding, not to respond. The fact that Roland said that it's not just a female thing, right? I like that as well because again, I know at one particular point in time when men started expressing their emotion, you hear people say, "Oh, you're acting like a woman," or "You're expressing your feminine side." No, that's still a part of manhood to be able to express his emotions. Here's the other part. Not only is he trying to express his emotion, he is trying to exercise what we call self-management. So he's trying to express his emotions at such a degree that he calmly gets his point across. But when we start going back and forth about how wrong it is I feel, then it's probably going to come out. It's probably going to be a little bit more, aggressive. That doesn't make it right. I'm just, giving you the trends. It might be a little bit more aggressive because at that point now it feels combative. So I like the fact that you brought to the table that it's not just that women have emotions, men have emotions as well, and ours don't always look the same. So we have to understand each other's emotional language. I put a post up a couple of days ago and I talked about the five love languages. And I love hearing other people's perspective about the love languages because most people look at love language from the perspective of manipulation. I understand what my love languages are. So you have to respond to me at my highest love language. No, that's wrong. I understand what my love languages are so that I can do the work to fix the ones that I'm lower in so that my partner don't have to work so hard. That's how it should be. And so I listened to several people talk about them, and like Chris, like you, brother, I'm gonna fly on the wall because I want to get their perspective and also listen to other people teach it. And unfortunately, a lot of times it's taught from the wrong perspective. So that's just kind of like my response to what you guys are saying, because it's phenomenal. I agree.
And Michelle Ray, yes, it's something that has to be developed in children. I don't think when you just put people out there. I learned how to deal with emotions growing up because I boxed. And if you get emotional while boxing, you're going to get knocked out. So you had to, even during adversity, you can't get emotional. You got to think, because you've seen people when they get hit, now all of a sudden everything that they learned goes out the window. Now they doing the windmill. No, you got to be able to think still. So definitely.
I like it. I like it. So I want to kind of give my myth. I think I kind of gave it a few seconds ago, but I want to kind of go back and bring it up again, right? Um, because I kind of went over it too fast, and I think it probably got lost in everything I said. But my emotions don't have to be at the level of yours. My understanding of how to express myself and how to process my emotions, I don't have to be at the level of awareness that you are for me to have emotions. I think that's important to understand. And sometimes we need to help each other with that emotional understanding. A lot of times we can do that just through the art of conversation and asking good questions, right? We need to get better. And I'm stressing this piece. We need to get better at the art of asking questions, because the more we ask questions, the better we can get an understanding of what the other person is saying. Sometimes we get supercharged with emotions, and it just comes out like a whirlwind, a violent tornado. And, we just got to calm down, stay calm, and let the other person finish what they're saying. And then ask questions about what they're saying, not to answer what they're saying, not to respond to what they're saying, but ask questions about what they're saying. When we ask questions, the other person feel heard. And in some instance, sometimes there's showdown. So I think that's a good point. And that's my myth. Let me kind of jump on some of these statements real quick because um, let me see. Brother Gaddy said emotional intelligence is not crying or not crying. It's knowing when to push forward and knowing when it's okay to let it out. I like that he brought emotional intelligence to the conversation, because that's what we have to strive to do, to become more emotionally intelligent. So great point. Go ahead.
Emotional intelligence to me, I'm glad Mr. Gaddy brought it up because it is necessary. But just like all of these other terms, it's used as a buzz phrase. Like everybody says emotional intelligence, without actually clearly defining what emotional intelligence is. That's about as clear as a definition that I've heard since that phrase has shown up on social media. Shout out to Mr. Gaddy.
Let me put it back up here again. See if I can find it. There we go.
I'm just not fond of the buzzwords.
Yeah, I got it.
You understand what I'm saying? I'm not, because people use these buzzwords to try to manipulate conversations and push people towards their thought process instead of actually listening, like you said earlier, to understand where that other person is coming from.
That's it. Absolutely. And all that get an understanding, right? So our job is to understand what the other person is saying. And I don't want to talk about it just from a relationship standpoint. This is just, you know, who you are as a being, as a person, as a man, as a young lady. We listen to understand the other person. And I think that's important. When it comes down to emotional intelligence, what we have to understand is that emotional intelligence is just me getting to the point to where I have a better understanding of how my emotions work. Not only just that, but I also get to the point to where I get to the point to where I can understand others, and number one, don't allow their emotions to take control of the environment. But then number two, don't feel like I'm responsible for doing anything because they have emotions. That's one of the biggest things that you kind of experience, and I tend to call that emotional manipulation. Like, we can manipulate people because of our emotions, and you see that a lot when people who can cry on the drop of a dime.
See, but that's the difference between emotions and being emotional.
Mm,
Because we all have emotions, and we got the same emotions,
yeah,
but we have to maintain a certain level. That's why when I'm talking to somebody, I'm listening and I ask questions like, so what I'm hearing is this. I say statements like that, because once you say things like, so what you're saying is like, and I hate when people say that to me, because I think I speak kind of okay. You should be able to understand me. So when you
right.
say what you're saying, no, I'm saying exactly what I said. I know what I meant when I said it. I don't slip up. If I say something to you, mad, angry, whatever, it's exactly what I said. It's not anything else. So if I'm in an emotional state, then now I dig, I try to hurt, I try to find a pain. Where you this, that, and other. That's when arguments come and it's a back and forth, and nobody's communicating because we're both trying to stab the other person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I like the fact that you said that because you're right. You know, getting to the point to understand the difference, because let's just be honest. When I brought that to the table, the manipulation piece, here's what I've seen. At some point in your life, you got hyper emotional about a thing, and then
Mhm.
somebody gave you what you want. So
Right.
now what has happened is a new norm started to exist in that person. And so they go from place to place, person to person. And then what ends up happening is when they don't get what they want, they act a particular type of way, they get what they want. Until they meet that person that's like, they still acting up. And you're just like,
You done? You finished? Now can
right,
we talk like grown-ups?
right.
Okay, let's go.
And that's not a bad thing either. You know what I'm saying? Just because you do not allow another person to emotionally manipulate you, that's not a bad thing. So the point here is just because a lot of men are still trying to figure out how to handle their emotions, how to process their emotion, and how to repurpose that emotion to something that is a positive outcome, that does not mean that you should allow yourself to be manipulated to keep the peace. That's two different things. And trust me, you're opening up a can of worms that you really don't want to get into. Shout out to Financially Focused. I see you over there. I appreciate you. Yeah, let me see. Listen to understand. Let me put it up here. Listen for understanding, not just to respond. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So let me kind of jump back to the question I seen earlier because I think this was a good question. I really like to know, how do you express your feelings today at your current level of awareness? Oh, that's good.
Chris. Okay. You.
Le- I was muted. I was muted.
Oh, okay.
I was muted. I have learned that if I have a feeling, like if I have a feeling in my gut, then I know that that feeling in my gut is valid. So I'm going to express it. And I'm going to express it in a way that it doesn't feel like a personal attack on the person that I need to express it to. I'm just going to say, look, this is what's going on right now. This is how I'm feeling. This is how you're causing me to feel. Let's do something about this. I'm not attacking you. You're not a horrible person. It's just you did this thing that's irritating the living hell out of me. So let's fix it. Now, if you see that person trying to fix it and put forth the effort, okay, then we got something going on. But if you tell that person, hey, this right here is bothering me, and they keep doing it even after they told you that is bothering you, I've come to learn that that person does not care. Cut them out of your life and move on, no matter how bad it hurts. And I'm not just talking relationships, I'm talking friends, I'm talking family, co-workers, jobs, all of that.
Now I agree to a certain point, but it's certain things that, like for me, it's a mental thing for real. When people chew food or drink or whatever, it irritates the living mess out of me. I'm telling you, it really does. To where I feel it inside, and if I say something, but what I learned to do is because I don't want to. I can't just every time you chewing, every time you're doing something. What I will remove myself, or what I learned to do is I put my earbuds in. I cut something on. I do something, but I gotta remove my because it's irritating the living world out of me. So certain things like that where
You
you
see, that's something
like
small.
right,
That's small. I'm talking something big that's irritating your soul, and
right,
you know that they know it's irritating your soul, and they're
yeah, that's
doing it anyway.
relationally. Yes, I agree.
Cut
Now,
that out. Just stop it because you know what you're doing. Don't. The worst thing that you can do to a man is try to push boundaries. If a man tells you, hey, this is bothering me and I need you to stop, and you keep doing it, it's going to show that man that you don't care.
definitely.
So why should he care about what you got going on if you can't do this one simple thing that's bothering him? We're simple. There's not a lot that really irritates us, like on a big level. Like little small stuff like chewing out loud, smacking your gum, little stuff like that, you can get over. All right, that's cool. I'll just go when you got gum in your mouth, I'll just pretend I'm listening to something else. When you eating, I'll go in another room. But if it's some big, like, just stop. Don't
See,
try to push your don't try to push bound. Don't just don't do it.
and I think where you're going is it's a difference between men and women because if a woman asks for a man is going to try to get her A, not what he thinks she wants, but a woman will. If a man say, "Hey, I want A," the woman ain't gonna get A. See, I don't like that. So I like this. She's going to try to get you to accept what she wants you to have. In a lot of instances, it's not a overall thing. So don't make it, oh, he bashing women. No, I never bash women. But
But
I
you're
know
right.
enough women that will say, well, I want it. I like this one. It's not about what you like. I don't like blue. You ain't got to like blue. It's about what I wanted, what I said. You asked me, I said what I wanted. Don't try to just because you cute and you know how to get up against me, make me desire what you want for me to have instead of what I told you I wanted.
See, this is this, and I'm not bashing women. Let me go ahead and put that disclaimer out there. I'm not bashing women, but that right there is where women
And we are
come
simple.
around my way and just lose. You're not about to give me what you think I should have. Give me what I want. And if you cannot do that, move. Get out of the way. So that way the person that can give me what I want can walk through the door because you blocking traffic. And the same goes for women. If a man isn't giving you what you want, why are you still with him? You're not gonna change that man. He may stay at a certain point until he get what he want out of you, and then once he get what he want out of you, he's gonna revert back to who he was.
You know, you guys. I'm just enjoying the conversation. I'm look because you guys are doing you hit home runs, man. I'm telling you. Shout out, Miss Sharina. Good to see you. Good to see you. Welcome to the show. Always good to have you. Listen, um, I think this is a phenomenal question, but I don't think I can just start at my current level of awareness because I don't think I'll do a lot of people any justice if I just talk right there. I need to back up because one of the first things I need to do is get understanding. I mentioned that earlier, right? I needed to get understanding. These things I got called emotions, they was all over here and over there and doing their own little thing. And I was a little confused, to be honest with you. So as I got to the point of understanding what emotions really are, sure, you've seen the definition, right? And you can go to Webster, and Webster will tell you what it is. This is the simplest way that I could get to the point of explaining emotions. It is my ability to clearly identify reality and understand the anxiety that I possess between where I am currently located and where reality is. That's what my emotions are. So that anxiety, that feeling, that gut feeling that financially focused is mentioning, that Roland talked about, or that Chris mentioned earlier, that gut feeling means something. It helps me to understand that I am not resonating with reality. Whatever a person presents to me, if I feel something, that's my emotion saying, hey, I don't like that. So now the question is, what do I do with that? How do I get to the point that I express it in such a way the other person can clearly hear what it is that I'm trying to say? Well, that's a facet of communication. So I had to learn how to communicate. And if you guys heard me talk about it previously, I mentioned it before. I had an issue with communicating. It was loud, it was violent, and it was aggressive. And then unfortunately, everybody was not at the point of hearing that. So just because I had an understanding of my emotions, not being able to express them puts me back at the same point of not understanding it. It's no good for me to understand them if I can't relay them. So getting to the point to being able to express them without the overbearing the overbearing behavior coming out before the emotions come out. So expressing them in such a way that another person can hear it and then be quiet and allow them to respond. Don't express it with any expectation. That's the other part. Chris, you hit the nail on the head, right? Because you really quote a scripture. If I tell you, if I tell you 2 times that something is bothering me, and again, this is something big. This is not something, it's not chewing like we talked about earlier. It's not because you chew, loud or whatever the case may be. But if I express something to you that really bothers me, and I express it to you twice, the third time, I'm supposed to cut. I'm supposed to cut. Here's the other side to it as well. I also probably need to understand that if I express it to you and I have good reason to express it to you, not just because I don't like that color shirt or I don't like this, I don't like that, or I think you should wear this and you shouldn't wear that. Those are immature things to discuss, right? If we're talking about something that violates me, that cross over my boundaries, like Chris talks about, well, the first thing I need to make sure is that I clearly defined my boundaries, right? Boundaries regulate my behavior. The reason why my boundaries exist is because when you cross over them, I need to be able to control my behavior. That's it. I need to tell you about crossing my boundary, but me controlling my behavior is for me. So, that being said, expressing in such a way they can understand, and then hold the space for them to process and respond to what it is you are saying, not their justification or anything else. Because if they start justifying, go right back to what you said. Because justification is a form of deflecting from the reality of the information that you're relaying. So when it comes down to expressing my emotions today, I am to such a point to where I understand my emotions. I can communicate them confidently, and I am mature enough to not move off of the current conversation that is being held. So, great question. Thank you, Lisa Keys, for asking that. Man, you guys are going to work. Brax, how you doing, my friend? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me see. Young Timothy is at it again. You
Mm-hmm.
ready? How do you brothers determine the difference between, excuse me, operating in your emotions and proper expression of emotions? Let me lean back and let these brothers go to work.
Oh, you want to
Hmm.
lean back?
Hmm. I think when you're operating on your emotions, you're just flying off the handle. You're not even thinking right. You're just feeling and you're going with the feeling. When you properly express your emotions, that means you actually took the time out to figure out why you feeling that way in the first place. And then when you figure that out, then you're like, okay, this is why I'm feeling this way, and it's legitimate. Let me go ahead and let this person know, hey, this is why I'm feeling like this. And most of the time when you operate in your emotions, you're operating in the right thing right now when you feel it. But when you can properly express them, you take a few, maybe a few seconds, and you like, hmm, let me see, is this really how I'm supposed to be handling this? Is really this really how I'm supposed to be feeling about this? And then you go from there. What you see now in mainstream media is men acting in their emotions. That's how you can tell the difference. These these little boys are, it's grand theft auto outside. It's crazy. But when you sit back and you look at that and you like, and you can tell from being on the outside looking in, you're like, okay, man, this little dude wilding out. Something wrong. We need to figure out what's really, really wrong, because wouldn't no normal person do this? You understand what I'm saying? I think, to me, that's the difference in my experience.
I think you hit it on the head right there, because I've had instances being in the military when soldiers would come up to talk about an issue and they're already in their emotions, crying and everything. Me as a leader, I can't jump in, oh, I'm coddling you and all that other stuff. I would say kindly and softly, can you go to the restroom, wash your face, and when you finish with all that, then we can talk, because I don't want to talk to your emotions. Because then I'm gonna get the and I'm not understanding anything. I want to get to the root of the problem. Tell me what's wrong so we can deal with what's wrong. Not your emotions, not he did, and then you going on a tantrum. And I think you got to think about what's being said and what's being done to you, because it's affecting you emotionally. So a lot of people will say, well, I don't even care. If you didn't care, you wouldn't be acting so emotional about it. But then you have people like you see your politicians, you see your entertainers. I'm not going straight to Kanye because that's one of those things, it's going to take the room everywhere. But he gets emotional when people don't agree with him. You
Mm.
don't agree with me. I'm emotional. I'm yelling. You don't got all the answers, Sway. Like I was just giving you. Then he come back some years
And then
later.
he come back and say Sway was right.
Right.
Right, right. So I think when you sit back and think about everything, then you are using a proper expression of your emotions, and you're not just in them. Because when you're in them, it's fight or flight.
I love it. I love it. You guys are spot on. I not taking a different approach, but I kind of want to look at the two opposing the dichotomy of this question, right? So operating in proper expression of. I think sometimes when we look at well, let me start with operating in. Operating in is exactly what you heard these gentlemen just describe, right? Operating in means that I am not processing anything. I am allowing emotions to, I'm allowing the emotions to drive the train. Therefore, wherever the train goes, I am totally unaware of where it's going until I calm down long enough to understand what I did. By that time, I may need to apologize to about two or three people. So, operating in your emotion does not allow you to process the information. It delays cognition. You can become emotionally overloading. Here's the thing where we need to understand. It's not just violent, right? We understand that when we're talking about me and mad, but it's also when I'm highly elated. So when I'm highly elated, I'm not making good decisions either
Mhm.
because I am supercharged with emotions. Oh my God, it is so good and all this other great stuff. You're too high up here. That's why when it comes down to making major purchases, you should not make major purchases on the spot. Go look at it, gather information, go home, calm down a bit, and then analyze the information because now you can properly think about it. So I like to say the peaks and the valleys are not good for you. You are supposed to regulate your emotions. So this is where you're supposed to be at. A lot of people don't believe that. That's okay. I don't say it to convince anyone. I only say it for you to consider. That's my phrase because I think that's important to understand. Stay away from the peaks and valleys because you're not going to make good decisions way up here or way down here. Once you understand how to regulate your emotion in the midst of adversity or in the midst of extreme joy, right? Then you can get to the point to where you can properly express your emotions. What does that mean? That means that I had the time to process how I feel about this thing. I had the opportunity to apply some gray matter to the analysis that I did within the space, like Roland talked about. I had the opportunity to think, and after thinking, I can actually make the best decision for myself, for the people that I'm trying to protect. Then now I can express it. So the expression of your emotions, and I'm glad you went there, young Timothy, because I'm going to introduce something else to the conversation. Because ultimately, what we understand is your emotions are simply energy in motion. You are energy, believe it or not. Therefore, emotions allow you to move in the direction of them. When you can process, think, and make proper decisions, then you can exercise your emotions in the direction that you want to go, and it will work out for your good. But operating in your emotions is not a good thing, not all the time. Be careful with that. Make sure that you have the opportunity to stop and think. Go ahead, brother.
And that's a problem we have with teenage love because they be in their emotions. So once somebody make them feel a certain way, oh, I'm in love, and then next week she don't make you feel, or he don't make you feel, I'm out of love. So you in love, out of love, and it has absolutely nothing to do with love, everything to do with emotion and like. So you like this person a lot because they are doing exactly what you like for them to do, and when they don't, now you're out of love.
See, that's why I love these guys, man. We speak the same language.
That
Listen,
was amazing.
it was, wasn't it?
That was amazing.
This is how so amazing it was because he ushered us into the next talking point. Now, listen, If you guys follow Chris Rock, whether you like Chris Rock or not, it doesn't really matter. He's still Chris Rock. I don't want to talk about him and Will Smith. But a while ago, he did a stand up and he made a statement. And this is the thing that that he made during that statement. He said, "Only women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally." Now, I know this is a little outside of the context, but love is we'll talk about what love is later. Now, I'm gonna kind of present that to the brothers tonight and see if we can talk about that next week. However, only women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on this statement?
Oh boy. I'm going to say that statement is true, but it only recently became true because there's an overbearing, overwhelming sense of responsibility that the men have in today's society to be able to produce and be able to provide and protect and all of this other stuff. And if you can't do that, a lot of the women nowadays are starting to look past you. And the fact that, and this is an attack, it's not an attack, the fact that we've been put in a situation where we have to do all of this producing and the women and the children and the dogs get to just be, you see what I'm saying? That's where we are right now. It's like there's no reciprocity anymore. It's like I have to do all of this while you just collect what I do for you while not giving me anything. So I'm going to say that that statement just recently became true.
I'm I agree with the statement, but I agree with the knowledge that the love will reach differently because I think that men seek respect more than they seek love. Because when you respect me, you ain't gotta love me. I mean, you say all that because that's tied to emotions. So when I need for you to do certain things or when I want certain things, respect me enough to do what I ask. That's showing your love. Now the unconditional, whether I get the big piece of chicken, I'm gonna make sure everybody ate. But if all is even, and I'm the breadwinner, hey, if I'm doing my part, I should definitely receive that. But I seek respect more than I seek love because that can people can like I'm in love, I'm out of love, I hate you, I love you, I like you. I ain't dealing with the emotional part. I'm gonna deal with the do you respect me enough to honor what I want?
That what's crazy is to us, respect and love are synonymous.
Right.
They're synonymous. They're the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah, they're the same thing. Just respect us.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't they say we speak the same language, man? Man, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Like literally, you guys said what I wanted to say. I mean, I'll go a step further, right? Um, Chris, I agree with what you said, but I'm gonna add to it. I think this statement has always been true, and the only reason I say it has always been true is because we confuse the word love. We don't necessarily understand what love is all about. We believe in like, so like is really what we know. And so, what like does, like makes me put a condition. Now, here's the deal. When I don't like you at the moment because of something that you did, what I do is I'll withdraw myself from you from a period of time. Now, let's change the scenario. If your son did something you like, would you withdraw yourself from your son for a certain period of time? Will you withhold any good thing from your son? Everybody understand how dogs behave. So let me tell you something. If the dog do something bad, you can put the dog in a cage. As soon as you let the dog out the cage, he's gonna come back to you anyway. A dog has a short memory. But so the dog is really not even a question. The child can go out there, and I'm just gonna be honest with you, rob the bank and can make the news and come to the house. Mama shoved that child in the closet and hide that child from the cops. I'm just saying, listen, listen, I'm just saying.
That's true.
I'm just saying. So going back to what Roland said, because I agree with that 100%. I need the big piece of chicken too, by the way. Just so I keep pointing the wrong direction. I need the big piece of chicken, by the way. But absolutely right. Because at the end of the day, if it has any condition whatsoever, it is not unconditional. That's what we need to understand. So the two parts to this is number one, having a complete understanding of what love is. And for us to understand that, we need to go back and search the scriptures and understand that love comes from the one that the Bible says is love. That's number one. And he displayed love by doing a number of different things. And that was done through extreme compassion, extreme correction, teaching, and expression of care, right? And then at the end, he sacrificed and gave the ultimate sacrifice for people who didn't even care about him. Now, then the question becomes, who have you sacrificed yourself for lately? And don't tell me cooking me the big piece of chicken is a sacrifice. That's not it. You know what I'm saying? Sacrifice means you have to lose something.
Mhm.
That's just it. So when we look at this, first we got to have a clear understanding of love, and then we need to understand whether or not we lace it in a condition that we call like. And we have convinced ourselves over the years because it has been taught to us that like is love.
Think about it like this, and I'm not going to the Mother's Day and all that, but as a child, when it came, when we would do Christmas and stuff like that, we would go out and buy mother something, but Daddy gonna get he might have some razors in there. We just gonna wrap them up, something already in the house, or even now,
Regifting.
yeah. When it comes to fathers always and you grow up with that mentality that he's not as important when it comes to gifts, when it comes to giving. You're taught that because growing up, we're gonna make mama in preschool, we're gonna make mama this macaroni necklace. Daddy ain't getting that. You might get a whatever. But we're taught to that his role is lesser because he's not more he's less in the development of the children. That's why when my children when they want me around, when they want me like my daughter, I had to drive 3.5 hours to Houston, and my daughter, she's in labor, and it's like she got her legs crossed, having her mama keep calling me, talking about where you at, where you at? Like, you can have, I done seen all them kids born. I don't, but when she wants me in the room, that's love for me.
Yeah.
That she respect me enough to she wanted me in the room. And she named the little naughty head kid, got part of my name in his name. Mhm.
Okay. Um, I'm gonna start this by saying I love anime. I truly do. I am an anime
Anime
head.
brother.
There you go. The
Tina
one of
Turner, man. No, go ahead.
one of my favorite animes is Full Metal Alchemist. At the beginning of the show, Alphonse Elric spits the law of equivalent exchange, which states that humankind cannot gain anything without first sacrificing something in return. To obtain anything, something of equal value must be lost. That's basically the law of reciprocity.
That's right.
Problem is, and that's why I said that this statement had just become true in today's society, there is no equivalent exchange. The man is simply supposed to give, and the woman is simply supposed to be there and receive. I'm not saying that this is everybody. I'm not saying that this is all women. These are the women that represent women in mainstream media, that the women that they don't represent are not telling to shut up. This is the perception that we are getting. This is why I said that this statement is true. There's the need for us to be top notch, to be these big things, has become so overwhelming that it's normal now. And nowadays, it's like, I'm a woman, I'm a kid. You're just supposed to give to me. And if I choose to reciprocate, I can. But I don't have to if I don't want to. But you have to. That's what today's market is showing us. That's why I said that this statement is true as far as recently. Before all of this stuff, I would say that it would depend on the situation. But nowadays, this is what we see. This is just what we see.
I like it. I
And the
like
fellas
it.
is tired of it, man, to keep it real. The fellas are tired of it.
I like it. Listen, I'm glad you brought to the kind of add a little bit more clarity to reciprocity, the law of equivalent exchange, the law of reciprocity. Uh, Here's the thing, and I want to make sure that we get it as I'm going on, because Brother Gaddy kind of helped close that out for me with this statement. But here's the thing I want to add to it. This is the issue. We spend too much time talking about the wrong thing.
Hmm.
The law of equivalent exchange is all about you sacrificing your ego for something greater than what your ego was going to give you anyway. Let's make sure that we understand that. I want to say that again because I think that's important to understand. We are supposed to sacrifice our ego. Listen, Roland's 100%. Roland's 100% correct. I just,
We
I'm
gonna
gonna
get
stop.
this right one of
No,
these shows.
I'm
We
just
gonna
gonna
get this
start
right.
using the microphone as a guide, right? So Roland is absolutely correct. We hum to the tune of respect. It is not demeaning. It is not demoralizing. But if you can show us that you respect us, then we will bend heaven and earth on your behalf. In fact, here's the best part about it. If you can show us that we'll respect that, if you can show us that you respect us, we'll give you everything you want. We will honor you. We will put you up on the. Look, listen, you don't even have to bet. We'll just do it simply because we appreciate you. And I
That's
think
good.
that's it. I think that's it.
Yeah, and that's biblical. Simply in the garden, when he says to till the ground and this, that, and other, he says, be fruitful and multiply. We are the fruit. We gonna put the fruit there. You multiply. Anything you give a woman, she gonna multiply. You give her a seed, she gonna bring a child. You give her groceries, she gonna make a meal. You give her a house, she gonna make a home. And that's where we work together in concert. But what happens is, well, I can do this, and we fight amongst each other, and then the work isn't getting done because we're too busy being in our emotions and not listening one to another and doing our job.
And to caveat off of that, what was actually said by Brother Gadden, I want to make sure I'm stressing that love is not an emotion. Love is a commitment. And
It's an
every
action
man,
word.
absolutely, every man has a responsibility to understand what that means. What does it mean for a husband to love his wife like Christ loved the church? That's the man's responsibility to get in the scriptures and learn it for himself. So, what you're going to understand, young ladies, and that's what we're teaching these young men, that love is going to evolve. The older he gets, the more mature he gets because he then comes to a better understanding of what love looks like. I want to make sure I'm stressing that. If we are bickering, man and woman, about love, we're clueless because here's the deal. I'm not looking for you to love me. I really just need you to respect me. I translate that to love in my mind. And once that happens, what you will find is, man, it becomes unconditional just because of who you are, your being. Gentlemen, you guys are amazing. I need for you to give us your advice for these teenagers, these young men, and these women who are raising boys because their fathers are not around. They don't have, dependable uncles, whatever that looks like. What do you have from them for them?
I think I said this before. Find that boy somebody that he can talk to and be vulnerable around and not get looked at like a punk. Find that boy somebody that he respect that can actually tell him something and not feel like he's being attacked. You understand what I'm saying? And I think that's a big issue in our community. We don't really have no OGs no more. Our OGs failed us. Our OGs taught us what they were taught and they kind of messed the game up. There aren't really a lot of the respectable men in our community are viewed as squares.
Mhm.
And that's the bigger issue. But my advice, find you a square that's doing what you find you a square that's doing something that you want to do and staying out of trouble doing it. Put yourself in his presence. Talk to him. Moms, find that boy somebody that he can respect and that he can talk to. I'm not gonna tell, this is the part where you don't get out of the way, because you might have to find him for the boy. You might
I
have to
need to
find
write.
him for the boy.
I
Yeah,
need to
right.
write
Yeah,
that down.
mark it. October 28th. I did not say, but once that boy finds that man that he can confide in and that's teaching him the right thing, move. You have to, because two things can't occupy the same space at the same time. You got to let that boy grow and see another man doing what he want to do, so that way he can see, A, it's possible, and B, it's legal. So that would be my take on it.
Hmm. We were waiting on you, Chris. You let us down. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
can't say mamas get out the way now. I can't. This is the, like I
I know, I
said,
know.
man. Yeah, this is the part where they have to be kind of sort of hands on, because, like I said, there aren't a lot of them out there, but they are out there. In fact, you know what? I take that back. There are a lot of them out there. They're just not in the light like the other people are.
There you
Yeah,
go.
You
Yeah.
understand what I'm saying? You might have to find them,
And
but
I
when you find them, move, so that way the guy that you found can pick up where you left off and teach him some things that you don't know how to teach him.
and I'm thinking on the lines of, because I see too many mothers that save their boys from uh, situations that they got themselves in. Uh,
Oh yeah, let that boy get his ass whooped.
that's what he said. And I think that yeah, you got to let him fight his own battles, and you also have to. You can't come to his defense when he's wrong. If he's wrong, don't like. I see. If I used to be at the school all the time, I would see parents come up there defending their child, knowing their child is wrong, and they're still defending them. No, you can't defend them. You gotta learn how to deal with the situation that they're in, and make your sons responsible. Whether it's work, whatever it is, stop giving these boys stuff. Don't give them money. Don't give them this, because what they do is they become expectant of it. So when they grow up, whatever woman they're dealing with, they expect to be you. So if you gave them everything, oh, well, my mama cook, my mama clean, my mama this. No, make him clean his own room, make him clean his own drawers, make him learn how to do everything for himself, make him self sufficient, because we have too many men nowadays. The only thing they think they need women for is to cook and to lay down.
mm,
So you have to make it to where these teenage boys, they work. They work with their hands, they work with their brains, because we teach our girls to be smart. Oh, she's so smart, she going to college. Oh, what you gonna do? You gonna play football? Like, no, he can think also. You have to have a cognizant being in your house if he's a male. He can't, because if you don't do it now, if you don't train him now, when he gets older, he's dealing with police in bad situations. Now he thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna run off." But no, you got to listen. You got to be able to handle the situation at the lowest level and not allow it to get here. So make sure you train the boys, train the girls also. But when we're talking about our young men, he has to know how to deal with situations. So if you save him from the situations all the time, he'll never know. So make sure that you are in teaching mode when they are doing right, wrong, or indifferent.
absolutely. I love it. Listen, I'm gonna talk to a couple of different groups of people here. Um, I want to start off by saying, when you're born, you look like your parents. When you die, you look like your decisions. So, that being said, parents, when that child is young, take the time to help that child understand their emotions. That's first and foremost. They should not learn how to actually become, emotionally stable when they become an adult. They need to learn how to become emotionally stable as a child. They need to learn how to process how they're feeling. You need to have an open dialogue so that they can come and sit down with you and say, Dad or Mom, whatever, I'm feeling this way. I want to be able to talk to you about it so you can help me understand why I feel the way that I feel. That's important. That environment only exists if you set the conditions for that environment to exist. That is your responsibility, not the child. I want to say it again. That is your responsibility, not the child. Too many times we get caught up in what TV shows look like, and what you're doing is you're going off a utopian concept of a family environment, but it does not show you how the parent extends the olive branch and invite the child to the table of emotional conversations. So have that conversation early, because if you don't, somebody in the street will. And somebody's on the street are going to teach them the wrong thing about their emotions. That's number one. Teenagers, we need to learn how to respect the older generation again. This is a problem that I'm witnessing. I am seeing too many people disrespect senior people. I never seen that when I was growing up. I'm 48 years old and I still refuse to curse in front of my mother. I refuse to do it. And I'm seeing videos with like young adults cursing out somebody else's grandmother. I seen a video the other day where somebody, this young girl went to her grandmother's house and fought her grandmother
Yes.
because the grandmother said something about her mama. Remind you, the mama is the child of the grandmother.
Mhm.
I don't know
What?
how.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I don't.
Oh my God. Oh.
Bro, I don't know how we got here. So my message to the teenagers,
Mm,
I don't know what you got to do, right? Talk to somebody, talk to an older man, talk to somebody in your family, find a way to regain what we call respect for your elders. That is important. It will take you a long way in life. That's for the teenagers. Young men, listen, it's your responsibility now. They're your emotions. No one is going to fix them for you. My recommendation is find someone that will give you a psychometric assessment. If you don't know what that is, come see me. I give it to you. I even teach you what it is, and I will walk you through it after you do it. It is necessary because you need to have a starting point or an understanding of your emotions and how you respond to the environment. You also need to understand what your behavioral patterns look like as well, because that's how you express your emotions. Secondly, your emotions should not be used as a weapon against anybody. That's another thing that I'm witnessing in this society. We cannot use our emotions as a weapon. Your emotions are for you, not to use against somebody else. And then you want to punish them when they don't respond the way that you want them to respond. That's wrong. So again, learn how to process those emotions. Get with somebody older that can act that what that is willing to sit down and talk to you and help you better understand it. You got three men right now who are willing. I think that's important to understand. Moms, we Chris kind of gave it to you. Listen, find another male, a senior male that is willing to mentor that young man. I think that's important to understand. Mentorship is the gateway of understanding what their future is going to be like. That older male will sit down and help them process the thoughts, help them set goals for their life, and then tell them some things in their life that they might want to consider doing to get to those goals. Right? That plants the seed, and once the seed is planted, then you'll be surprised what actually happens as life progresses. So again, those are my comments. Again, I can't stress it enough. We need to regain respect for elders. I don't know how we got to do it. We can go by the concept of each one teach one. I honestly don't care, but it has to happen because trust me, when I seen that video, I was upset because I love my nieces to death. But listen, no one's gonna go to my mama house and put their hands on her. I am on the way. That's just what it is, and that's because I love my mama. That's just it. Every man loves their mother. Here's the deal, and I want to stress it. I know we said it before. I know you've heard it in other places, right? I know people say that look at the relationship between the boy child and his mother. If they have a good relationship, that is ultimately how they can that's the gateway to them having a good relationship with you. But here's the thing that you don't understand: the mother loves the child unconditionally. I mentioned that earlier. So you can't go in there with conditions and say, "Hey, well, they treat the mama good. They're gonna treat me good. Are you willing to do what mama's gonna do?" So these are things to consider. So I've talked long enough. Another phenomenal conversation. Listen, man, I'm looking in this chat. I mean, you guys are just phenomenal, man. Thank you so much for everybody in the chat. Shout out to Antoine, the artist Christopher, man. Good to see you, brother. Lisa Keys, financially focused, Cassandra, young Timothy, Brax, who did I miss? Sharina, I know she's out there as well. And all those people who I cannot see. Man, listen, I just want to make sure that you know that we appreciate you and look forward to reading your phenomenal comments every week. You guys add so much value to the show, and just shout out to these men right here, those guys right there. Those guys, amazing. Those guys are amazing, man. I really appreciate them. They're phenomenal, man, and they just add value. Now I'm just a quarter. I'm just a point guard, man. You guys make all the shots. So again, listen. Thank you guys for being a part of the Hearts of Men podcast. I'm gonna try to talk to these brothers, and we're gonna talk to these brothers and see if we can talk about love next week. So be on the lookout for what we're gonna talk about next week.
Again, and it won't be like I don't know of it, huh?
It could be like no. Listen, every Friday, 8 p.m. right here. Again, we look forward to meeting you. You guys have a phenomenal weekend. Listen, Georgia plays Florida this weekend. If you don't know about it, go check it out. We don't really care what Michigan doing because that's yesterday's news. You guys have a great weekend.
Hey, it's all about the Astros tonight.
You're right. You're right. Absolutely. Listen, you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next week.